and welcome to the Bechdel Theatre Podcast.
The podcast where we talk about gender and representation on stage.
I'm Pippa.
And I'm Beth.
And we're your hosts.
So this week we have some excellent guests, a trio of guests from one of our very favourite theatre companies, RashDash, who we've been fans of for ages and ages and ages. So it was an absolute joy to have them on the podcast. Finally!
I know. I think we spoke about them on the podcast with their previous show. They've already churned out a new one, a new fantastic one. Their last show that we spoke about was Two Man Show, that's the name of it, which was at Summerhall in Edinburgh when we last spoke about it, I believe.
Yeah.
And toured to Soho Theatre and other places and became a huge smash hit amongst their other work, which is just like smash hit after smash hit.
It really is. They're just, out of all the theatre companies that I've been following, they make consistently good, successful work. It feels like they're just constantly kind of like, they're a machine.
They really are.
They're a machine. They're a team as well. And you can absolutely, I think you can feel that in the interview. Like, we barely have to edit this one. It's just, they automatically kind of take turns talking. It's like they have this very kind of, what's the word, cohesive way of being.
Like one would pick up where the other one was finishing something or it was just like really collaborative, really to visualize it like very circular, like very like comes back round to the beginning, very
I think that their relationship really shows in when you meet them and in their presence.
I feel like it's one of those companies where to be in their rehearsal process would just be like such a interesting and like kind of also very quite like maybe groundbreaking experience. I can just imagine the way they work being really thought through and also really supportive and collaborative. I can imagine it being really cool. I wish I could take a peek. But unfortunately we don't get to take a peek, but we did get to have a listen to them talk about their process.
We kind of got to see them make lunch, which was
a craft of its own.
Super creative. We as soon as we stopped talking, they like came to life and immediately started chopping up avocados and tomatoes and courgettes and combining them together in almost like what looked like a rehearsed routine. And I felt like I was watching one of their shows, watching them make lunch.
Yeah, like
that's
weaving in
creepy,
and out of each other.
But that's the way they work. They're amazing.
Really reflected in the way they are. I mean, we first met them properly, other than being huge fangirls, which is really nice that we've had this kind of journey with them, I guess, in January when we were invited to a discussion with The Guardian and other people in theatre to talk about the impact of the Me Too movement in the theatre world. And Helen and Abby from RashDash were there then, and they were telling us about their show, and we were so excited because we were just like, we love everything you do. And so it's really nice now.
We've got to get this on record on the podcast.
And now it's happening. And
well, I'd met Becky before though, because we used to work front of house together many years ago, so that's like a weird colliding of worlds, but not, because everyone in this industry has worked front of house at some point or another. So
it was an amazing interview, and we won't hold it off any longer, so here it is for you now. Please enjoy our interview with RashDash Theatre Company, and stick around to the end so we tell you where you can get your tickets, where it's on, and also for theatre recommendations. Enjoy! Hello everyone, me and Beth are joined by the wonderful theatre company RashDash, made up of Abby Greenland.
Hello, I'm Abby.
Helen Golan.
Hi.
And Becky Wilkie.
Hello.
And they are here to talk about their brand new show from an old show, Three Sisters by Chekhov.
After Chekhov?
Yes,
by
Three Sisters by RashDash after Chekhov is
I
what
love
we're
that.
saying.
Yeah,
What
it says
does
on your
this
poster.
mean?
Yeah.
After Chekhov, is that like your...
I guess it means, I guess we take license to do what we want to with the original text, which is certainly what we've done.
Mm-hmm. So, Chekhov, you've chosen this old white guy to mess around with. Why him? Why Chekhov? Why Three Sisters? The particular play you've chosen?
It was more the play than the playwright. Being three women, it felt like Three Sisters would be a fun thing to do. And it was the kind of like we were at a point with the company where we had a few conversations with people, with artistic directors and producers, saying it would be great to see RashDash on a bigger scale now. You know, we like your work, we like what you're doing. How do we move you from studio to more major spaces? And one of those things was, well, what about doing a classic? And how would that feel? And we did sort of really interrogate what that would be like, and kind of got quite excited by that for a while. But then in another phase kind of went, why? Like, that's quite depressing, actually, to think that that's the thing that we've got to do, is say the words, even if they're rewritten and it feels kind of fresh and contemporary, essentially tell the story written by a man centuries ago. That feels like that needs more wrestling with. So what we've done here isn't putting on Three Sisters, really. It's, although we are inspired by Three Sisters and we've taken lots of stuff from the play that we really like, because there is a lot in there, we've also ignored all the stuff that we don't like or that doesn't feel relevant to us, and have totally ignored it and added in lots of new things as well.
Great. So if somebody comes to see the show and they haven't heard or much about Three Sisters, they've never seen a production of it, they've never read it before, what will they make of it, do you think?
I think the key to enjoying it is not worrying about how much you know about Three Sisters, because it is a play on its own, our show, and it is saying stuff separately from what the original play says. And I think all you need to know is we've made Three Sisters, and it was originally a play by a dead old white guy, and it's been done lots and lots, because that's the other reason that we wanted to tackle this one, is because it's done a lot. It's kind of an important staple of the canon in British theatre, and it feels like when artistic directors and programmers were saying it's time to see you do a classic now, part of the thing that we found tricky about that is, it was, how can we make you safer? How can we slightly curb the risk of the kind of work that you make, and how can we ensure that people will come and see what you do? If there is a title, then that will do it. And so, yeah, there are loads and loads of plays by dead white guys, but there are fewer that are really recognisable titles, and Three Sisters is one of those. And it's also one that, as we've gone through working in theatre over the last 9 years, I don't know if I've met a director that doesn't want to do it. Three Sisters feels like the way Chekhov deals with character, the way Chekhov deals with time, lots of people are quite enthralled by it, and it felt interesting to take one that feels sacred and to mess with one that feels precious, rather than one that feels like people mess with it all the time anyway. And that could have been a Shakespeare, but that's a very different thing, and we wanted to deal with something slightly more contemporary.
And because you would expect it from the title to really be about women, and it does have 3 women and more women, 5 women in the play, and
Chekhov's play.
Yes, in Chekhov's play, and they are, 3 of them are pretty central to the action, but there's also a hell of a lot of men who take up a lot of space in the play, and who kind of get to say all of the sort of big philosophical statements about the world and all of the, in inverted commas, important things.
So only just passes the Bechdel test.
Only just, but
only by a scrape of a hair.
But they don't speak about anything other than a man for more than half a page.
minute or whatever.
So it depends where you set your limit, because it is like a few lines over, isn't it? Which is
the final scene, I think, is the biggest chunk where they're talking about going away.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first questions that we had when we read it as a group, was, hang on, does this even pass the Bechdel test?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
Good try, Chekhov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
RashDash can do better.
You know what that reminds me of? When we went to go see Dreamgirls, and I hadn't seen the film of Dreamgirls, so I didn't know much about it. I just assumed it was central to the 3 women. So many other men in the show with their own songs, who had so much control over the storyline. I was like, yeah, it seems to be a bit of a trend. I also like how, I think what I will take from this, because I've never seen Three Sisters. I think I've read it, but I have never seen it. But that you will be having new audiences come in who will probably prefer your version and only want to see your version of Three Sisters, as opposed to going to read the original text, or as opposed to going to see like a very traditional production of the play. I think that's really exciting to be doing that.
Yeah, I think when I was studying at school, I went to see the Katie Mitchell version, which was amazing at the National. But to go and see your version would have probably blown my mind. In like looking back at how Katie Mitchell blew my mind, because she was like freezing, doing like stop motion and playing with time, and that felt like, oh wow, she's messing with a sacred text. But no, I feel like
that's
it's a
another
different
question.
story if you just completely chop it apart and add stuff in.
Is it the question when, because we had a student group come on the first show in Manchester, and the teacher emailed us afterwards saying we loved it, and actually it really helped us to talk about how the students felt about this text in a way that they didn't feel like they had to appreciate its greatness. They felt like they could have a conversation about whether they liked it or not, and not feel like, well, you should like it and now let's start from there and start the conversation, which was really interesting. But essentially it's not Three Sisters. We've taken an awful lot from it, and the structure is very similar to Three Sisters and lots of the ideas that we're discussing, but it is not that text. So when students come and see it, are they studying Three Sisters? I guess they're studying our response to it, but I've just found that really interesting, thinking about whether or not to suggest groups who are studying the text to come and see it.
Oh, I definitely think they
Yes.
should.
Yeah.
I love that teachers, like that student groups, are coming to see it, because it's such another way to be studying a play and a production and a text.
Yeah, to have an opinion about it, like, because so often I think when you're like, especially if you're at school and you're writing an essay, it's about, you're thinking, what did the writer mean? What did Chekhov intend? Rather than, what do I think about this? What does it mean to me? Like, what relevance does it have now? Is a completely different perspective to look at something from, which seems to be more like where you're coming from.
It was one of the questions we asked at the beginning of the process. It feels like so often when you get a text in a rehearsal room, you were asked, how can you serve that text? And we started with the text and we said, okay, how can this text serve us? If it's still going to be around, if it's still going to be staged all the time, what is it actually saying to me? Why should I go and see it? And therefore, how can we make it relevant to us and to people like us?
That is awesome.
I love that.
I love it. It's a revolution.
Yeah. And so about the piece, you have other performers with you, don't you?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a bit about them, how you found them, what they do?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, so we have Chloe and Yunji. Chloe's a drummer and Yunji is a violinist, and neither of them have worked in theatre before. So we were looking for musicians, because for this show, there was one point, maybe even before we had the idea of Three Sisters, where we wanted to make a band show. We just basically wanted to do a gig in a theatre and see what that would be like. We've wanted to do, I guess I joined the company last year properly, and as a musician, we've kind of, all agreed that we want to do more music. So this show was always going to be heavy on the music. So we found, both Chloe and Yunji, we put out a call out for female musicians and got a lot of interest. And they're both absolutely great. And they've been improvising music with us as well. So when they first came into the room, we wanted to make a piece about kind of time, and they just instantly were off. The two of them just clicked together and were writing music together immediately. So they've been a really great addition to the gang.
I love that, a violinist and a drummer.
Yeah.
What brilliant musicians to have.
So is it the three of you like composing the music, or all five of you composing the music together, and like a collaborative process?
Very collaborative. It's kind of each of us have a few songs that we do, and we've written the lyrics to the songs that we sing, and then there are some songs that we all do together, and usually one person writes the lyrics and then somebody else writes the melody, usually me. But had a little go at other people writing melodies and bits and bobs as well. And then then we just all bring it together, and Chloe and Yunji have written their parts. There'll be a song and I'll say, right guys, we're just going to play the song, do you want to just jam along and see what comes out? And then we've sort of built it up together like that. So a lot of the music has come together.
They both have solos in the show as well, which they've written and improvised, which are both killer. So it feels like it's really important in this show that everyone gets to speak, but not all the speaking is verbal. They're musicians, and so they speak very much with their instruments, and I've been really excited by watching them do that.
Yeah.
But it's been a bit of a dream process actually working with them, because you never know what it's going to be like bringing people into the company, and obviously we know each other very well, and we have I suppose we have quite a specific way of working, and you only really realise that when you bring new people into it. And I think at the beginning I felt quite worried that they might find it a little bit too chaotic, or that it wouldn't, that people, you just don't quite know where people are coming from, but they totally just adapted to it straight away, and we felt like a company very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Which hopefully you can kind of feel in the show.
But we felt like a company with the whole creative team. So
Yeah.
we're working with a stage manager that we work with a lot, and he was the only man in the room, and he's a very gentle man. It was very lovely to have him there. And we've also been working with a woman called Elisa, who's been designing a zine that goes alongside the show that kind of tries to kind of scoop up some of the ideas in the show and let you take them away with you.
Which everybody gets for free when they come and see the show.
Amazing.
It's
That's
a
such
really
great
beautiful
idea.
thing as
I
well.
love it.
She's made a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then Rosie Elnile, who designed it, was in the room for most of the time, and at points was a director, at points was dancing with us in the space, at points was a designer. So she's been really, really involved in the authoring of this show, kind of not, not providing a set on which we do our business, but she has been so much an author. As we do our business. The business of
we're a
theatre.
dog.
I'm so sorry. I apologise, I shouldn't have said that. And then Ziggy, the lighting designer, was also in the room, and she's, every time we have a dramaturgical conversation that's a bit sticky, she's such a clear authorial voice at that moment. And then Jude Christian, who's a dramaturg, and Eleanor, who's our sound engineer. So it felt like everyone who was in the room has authored this show, and every time we've had a question and thought, what do we mean here? What are we saying? Are we saying what we want to say? Everyone has a stake in that, whether they're on the stage saying it or not, which has been, which is why it's been, as you say, a dream process. Yeah.
Do you think that is a feminist way of working? I know you call yourselves a feminist theatre company, and it's always there in kind of any headline that you read about. If it's a RashDash show, it always says feminism in there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that influences the way you're working, the process, as much as the topics that you choose to cover? Or
Yeah, I think it does. I think that I think we try and work as much as possible without a hierarchy in the room, and that does feel radical and feminist. It's probably not what all feminists think is the way to go, but it feels right for our process to at least aim to do that, although it's a complicated one to unpick because someone has to make final decisions, someone is the person raising the money and holding the money, and those kind of things.
the roles have to be defined in a certain way.
Yeah.
At the moment, because of the bigger structure that we're working within, they absolutely have to be. And usually there's a real consensus, which makes it feel like there is no hierarchy. It's only when there isn't that it gets a little bit tricky. But we haven't encountered much of that in this process, actually. I think because we found the right people to work with on the right project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been going now since 2009.
Yeah.
So 9 years of developing this process and working the two of you together at the beginning, Helen and Abby. And
Although actually Becky was in the first show that we made out of university, and that's sort of that 2009 is the year we give because that's the year that we graduated. So
We've been working together for 10 years because we met at university.
Yeah.
Which uni was that?
Hull.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually Becky has been here from the very
So what was the
beginning.
first show that you did?
The Honeymoon, it was called, and we did it in Edinburgh, and I was still at uni doing English at the time. But yeah, so I've been on and off in the company for all of that time, really.
Yeah, when we say she's joined the company, we don't mean she started working with us, because she's been working with us for the whole time. It's just that she has to do the boring admin with us now as well.
That is
Brought her
exactly
into the
what's happening.
stress and responsibility of all
I
the
am now-
decision making.
now in charge of logistics of
She
the
goes
company.
spreadsheets and fundraising now, so.
But I love that.
Oh wow. Not just a musician.
Oh yeah.
So when you started out in 2009, straight out of uni, did you from the outset call yourselves a feminist theatre company?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
think-
did. We did. And The Honeymoon was about two brides who jilted their husbands at the altar and ran away together.
Oh my god, I want to see the show.
Revival?
The first song. We should just revive the first song because that was my favourite.
Yeah. So yes, and I think that like our politics have developed, as they do, and as they will continue to. But I think feminism came in pretty early, really, into our work.
Has it changed over the years, like in terms of how that is received? Or...
Well, interestingly, when we first started calling, I remember people saying do you want to call yourself feminist? Is that a sensible idea in terms of like how we market stuff, and us having that conversation being like, oh, you know, we've always called ourselves feminist people, but are we a feminist company, and is that useful? And then we just thought, well, yeah, we absolutely stand by our politics, and if people are put off by it, then they shouldn't come. But then thinking, well, does that mean you're just preaching to the converted? And so all of those questions. But more recently, it feels like people talk about feminism as if we're almost like saying it to be trendy, which is like, well, it's really hard to know where to stick to your guns. And when we did a discussion recently at Cambridge University, and 2 young women who were making a show said, we're really struggling to know whether to market our show as feminist or not, because we think that people won't come if we do. And so women are still, you know, starting their careers by saying, should we be honest about how we feel? Should we use that label? Is that label what we want? And yeah, I think it's... I know why people are finding it difficult when people ask you, do you want to speak to as many people as possible, and people who wouldn't necessarily call themselves feminist as well, because these are universal themes, and some people still feel locked out by the word feminist, which I think is a huge shame, which is why we keep calling ourselves feminist and just hope that people can come to it.
And I think it is changing, and I think certainly my attitude towards it has changed, because I think probably when we started I was maybe a little bit more nervous of it, because I think it was only sort of during university that I started calling myself a feminist, so it felt relatively new. But yeah, now I don't even think about it really. I'm just kind of like, well, obviously, and so should everyone else be. And yeah, I think it's almost become less of a buzzword. It feels like we've sort of moved past the buzzword bit.
It does feel like it's got a bit less scary. I don't know if it's just because I've got older. I have a vivid memory of somebody asking me in 2009, because I remember where I was at the time, and they said, oh, you're not one of those feminists, are you? And before I said, well, yes, I am actually, I paused and had a little think about it and thought, oh God, well, if I get into saying that I am I going to have to pass a test? Am I going to have to like define that for them? Am I going to have to justify it? What am I hole am I digging myself into? Whereas nowadays, I wouldn't even answer the question. I would be like, if you have to ask that question, the conversation is over. Like, I'm not even engaging. And it just feels like it's been quite a journey, but it's hard to tell. I know what you mean, like how much of that is personal and to do with growing up and being past uni and actually being an adult and being able to say, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, and how much of it is due to the world changing.
Yeah, see, I think feminism was quite popular for me at uni, like to do the modules around gender and around performance and things like that. I was very nervous. I was like, oh, I don't know enough about it. That was the only reason I didn't want to do it, because I was like, oh, everyone knows their shit about feminism and I'm just learning.
I haven't read enough feminist books.
Yeah.
Still haven't read enough feminist books.
No,
never.
Who has?
There's not enough time to read all the feminist books.
Exactly. Speaking of which,
something that we ask all our podcast guests, but we kind of wanted to extend to you guys, maybe to talk a bit more about, is we normally have #feministfades, which is when we ask guests and also ourselves who are our favourite feminists or feminist things that have like inspired us in our journey of feminism. Normally it's just something I'm looking at each month. Do you have any influences on your work that you kind of look to, or maybe bands or other performers, or do you have any other favourites right now?
or books, you know.
Or books.
Sometimes books. Sometimes it's a book.
Yeah.
Well, the first person that sprung to mind for me is actually a friend and collaborator that we have worked with, will hopefully work with again in the future, and that's Alice Birch, the playwright and now film and TV writer. And I think that we worked with her sort of in our early-ish 20s. That's when we met her, and I think that was still quite a formative time for me, both in terms of RashDash and the work and how we were making the work, but also in terms of politics and feminism. And I think the conversations that we had with her were really influential to me, and her work definitely was very influential.
And still is.
Do you want to drop some of the work that the listeners should check out if they don't know Alice Birch?
Yes, you should check out Revolt, She Said, Revolt Again, for sure.
Which is a play.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is a play.
Cool.
Also her film Lady Macbeth is fantastic.
I forgot that was her.
Yeah, that's her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of her work,
Yes.
Anatomy of a Suicide,
Yeah.
is also excellent. Yeah, she's just an excellent woman and thinker.
Yes, and I think she's very challenging in a very unusual way. So yeah,
Cool.
if you're ever lucky enough to have a conversation with her,
Yeah.
it will be an interesting one.
Does she have like a relationship with RashDash? Do you talk to her about your process or what you're making? Or...
We do as friends. Like
Yeah.
we have made together. We Want You to Watch together. So we're
I love that show.
we're so we, you know, we know what it's like to work together, and we had been developing another show that maybe we will make together at one point in the future when that comes about. But the way that we work together feels really special, and we both, you know, she's a really good friend, and we do talk about our work with each other. So yes, she has a relationship with RashDash.
Continuing influence.
Yeah, for sure.
This is what I love about women in the arts. Yes,
Connected.
Feminist faves, any more?
I want to say you two.
I want to say you too. I was going to say that. You stole it from me.
It's so cheesy. Like, I know it's cheesy, and I
thought you might say like your mum or something.
I mean, my mum
'Cause
is
your
an
mum is
absolute feminist.
mega.
First.
She
She's
can go on the list. She should definitely be.
She is a feminist favourite, most definitely. And I called myself a feminist from coming out of the womb because of both my mum and my dad, because they're both real vehement feminists. But at the moment, there's something about going on stage with you two every night and, you know, trying to stay playful and stay in the middle of what we've made together that does feel like it just takes a lot of trust and a lot of support. And you are definitely my feminist fave at the moment.
Oh my god. It's the first time anyone's ever said each other.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's so cheesy.
So sorry.
No, that's wonderful.
It's true
That's
though.
lovely.
So lovely.
Becky,
Yeah,
you got one.
Becky.
No, that you've stolen my one now. That's it. I can't say anything better than that.
A music one?
I mean, there's so many music ones. If I think about, I was going to say Regina Spektor, but only because that's the first kind of woman I saw playing music on her own when I was, you know, in sixth form. And I just thought, oh, you can just get up and just play piano and guitar and sing, and it's just you on stage, and you've come over from America, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I've seen loads of people do that, and it's something that I've done. But yeah, at the time I just thought, oh, I don't know if I knew that was possible.
Yeah, you can do it all at once on stage.
Yeah. She's got. I remember that as well. I think we must be the same age because I remember seeing Regina Spektor and thinking, God, she's so like different, and like she didn't seem to put herself into like any kind of sexy box.
Yeah.
It was like she was definitely her own voice.
Yeah,
and
that
quite
was the thing actually,
unique
not being in the
and
sexy box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really sure, isn't she? There's something about watching her. She's this amazing force.
Yeah.
I
which
thought you were
is
going to say she's really short.
she's so short. I mean, I actually don't know if she's short or
Quite
not.
a small woman. It may have been one of my things that looked to her.
Yes,
thinking,
you can be
"Wow,
short and you can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, small women doing it. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you.
Do you have a feminist fave, Beth?
Recently, feminist fave. You said Rennie Edo-Lodge's book. Why I'm no longer talking to white people about race.
Yeah.
And I am currently listening to her podcast about race with Rennie, and that is amazing.
That's a really
So-
good one, actually.
If you've read the book, or you're reading the book, or you have any interest, get a load of that podcast.
Anyone should just listen to the
Everyone
podcast.
should, yeah, because it's brilliant. She interviews loads of different people from kind of all different like walks of life, people doing different jobs, from like MPs to musicians, about race.
Yeah. To like period campaigners and
And she's got so many different guests. The multitude of voices is really exciting, but also the way she presents it. So she'll record the conversation, but then occasionally, as the presenter of the podcast, authorial voice, will kind of pause the conversation, step in and be like, when I said this during the recording, I was thinking about, and then she'll give a bit of background, or like if there's a word that they use in a conversation, she might step in and just, as the editor, say, by the way, this word means this, and this is why they're talking about this.
it's got really nice music as well. Just the vibe of the whole podcast is really nice. It's only half an hour.
Yeah.
It's class.
Half an hour, good sound quality, good podcast goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rennie Edo-Lodge
Yeah, that's a good
podcast.
one.
What's yours?
Oh my god, yeah. Okay, so my feminist fave is the COC initiative, spelt KOC, which stands for the Kings of Colour Initiative. And it is a drag king collective of Kings of Colour who perform at the Glory, and they've just got a residency at a venue in Bethnal Green. Go to their Instagram and Facebook to find out about them because they are amazing. And we went to see a show of theirs last night where each performer does two acts, and the night that we saw ranged from circus with a unicycle to rap to like an homage to the 90s and then like a very, very like serious kind of conversation in between Zayn Fallick and Chio, talking about the racism that they encounter and transphobia in the cabaret community and about other drag contests that exist, and how it's really important to support particularly cabaret artists of colour, and that's where the initiative was born, and how they travel around the country to kind of bring new work in places that might not normally have that following. So I would 100% recommend Kings of Colour. They are amazing.
I think they might be performing at Brighton Pride, or at least some of them.
They said that, didn't they? Some of them are, yeah. Also, Izzy Aman from PEX works with them as well and does shows with them. So I think they would be my feminist fave this month.
Good one.
Great.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I wish I could talk to you guys all day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could go and do a show or
I
something.
know.
End of conversation, but I'm sure it won't be the end.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to seeing your show.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So
Great.
excited.
That was RashDash Theatre Company, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And if you want to catch Three Sisters at the Yard Theatre, then you can do so until June the 9th in London. And then it transfers over to the Tobacco Factory in Bristol from the 12th of June until the 16th of June. So go, 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 go. And tweet us about it when you see it, because we're really excited to see everyone's responses.
Yeah, let us know what you thought. Some more recommendations for you coming up in the month of June. First of all, we have The Yellow Wallpaper, which is on at Clapham Omnibus from the 5th to the 24th of June. And this is based on the short story, which, if you've ever studied English literature, you might have heard of it. It was Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and she wrote this incredible, like, creepy story about, and also very, very sad story that seems to be about kind of ghosts in the wallpaper, but it's actually about, I think, postnatal depression. So it's probably going to be an intense piece of theatre. I can almost imagine the visuals of it. That is at the lovely Clapham Omnibus Theatre in Clapham.
Coming up at the Bush Theatre, we have Leave Taking, which is by Winsome Pinnock, who is known as the godmother of Black British playwrights. It's an award-winning classic play, which is being redone at the Bush until June the 30th. A little bit about Winsome Pinnock. She won the George Devine Award for this play in 1991 and was also the first Black British woman to have a play produced at the National Theatre. And so she's written loads and loads of stuff, and it seems really great that the Bush are redoing this production. And there are some cool post-show Q&A and events as well. So on Wednesday the 6th of June, there's a talk with the cast and creatives, which is obviously free to ticket holders. And then there's also a panel on Thursday the 14th of June, which seems really interesting, which asks, who are our queens? The power and legacy of women of colour in theatre. A panel of writers and directors will pass the baton of experience to the next generation. That is also free to ticket holders that night. So it seems really great. Go see it.
Coming up towards the end of June at the Arcola Theatre, there's a brand new play called Spun, which is by a friend of Bechdel Theatre, Rabia Hussain, who actually had a play on as part of our Bechdel Testing Life at the Bunker last year. She did a play about two sisters that opened the Bechdel Testing Life night, and it was brilliant, absolutely. Like, I cried. I saw it many times in rehearsals, and I cried every time I saw it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some new work from Rabia. And this is a play about best friends. Safia and Aisha have been best friends for years. They bunk off school together, revise for exams together, but they're forging different paths. So it's about them going, two best friends going in different directions, and it's set around I think it's like the 7/7 London attacks. It's about kind of two British Pakistani Muslim girls growing up in East London, their friendship, and also their kind of relationship to the city in a time of change. That is spun at the Arcola and from 27th of June till the 28th of July. And also this summer, throughout the summer until right to the end of August, is the new season at Shakespeare's Globe, which sees Michelle Terry take over artistic director. So the Globe, obviously last year there was a big hoo-ha about Emma Rice leaving. They've got a new artistic director, Michelle Terry, who is an actor, and she has recalibrated the way the Globe works in terms of hierarchy, which is actually interesting, linking back to what RashDash was saying about how their rehearsals and their kind of creative way of working is very much a kind of flat hierarchy. It sounds a bit like the way Michelle Terry is working with her ensemble at the Globe, rather than taking a director vision approach to the productions. They've taken a kind of ensemble approach to the productions where everyone involved in the production has a creative input. And so the two productions they're producing this summer are As You Like It and Hamlet. In Hamlet, Michelle Terry is actually playing Hamlet, which I think would be interesting. I'm not a big fan of Hamlet, but I loved her when she played Henry V at the Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. She was awesome. So, you know, as much as I've said I'll never go and see another Hamlet, I might consider going to see that. And also As You Like It, which I love. It's a great favourite of mine when you're looking at Shakespeare, and it does pass the Bechdel test. So As You Like It and Hamlet at Shakespeare's Globe until August 26th, if it's a sunny day and you fancy some outdoor theatre.
And finally, one of our most exciting productions to ever grace the London stage that we are looking for is Fun Home. Yeah! Coming to the Young Vic Theatre. Is this the first time we've mentioned it on the podcast? No.
Probably not.
No.
Probably
okay,
it can't be, but it's finally here. It's less than a month until Fun Home.
Oh my god, so excited. So if you don't know what Fun Home is based off the graphic novel memoir of, drumroll please, Alison Bechdel.
Our Lord and Saviour, Alison Bechdel.
Our queen. It's the graphic novel that she published over 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it got turned into a musical of all things. It was first produced on Broadway and then it's taken a few years, but now it is gracing the London stage in the Young Vic Theatre. And we cannot wait. Obviously, Alison Bechdel show, Bechdel Theatre.
I mean, it won 5 Tonys when it was on Broadway, so
and
don't take it from us, you know, it's going to be amazing.
Not just us. But I remember hearing that it was the first musical on Broadway to feature a lesbian protagonist. So it might be the same in London. I don't know.
Yeah, I reckon. Like musicals especially.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is just awesome. I mean, if you haven't heard any of the songs yet, you are in for a treat. I have never in my life, as a very casual musical theatre, like I rarely see musicals, mostly because they're really expensive, but it's just, I've never felt the need to download a soundtrack before I've actually seen a show. This one, I was straight on Spotify, like I need to hear these songs, and now I feel like they're ingrained in my soul.
And I feel like it will only, like, they only enhance the expectations of the production, and also obviously go and buy Fun Home, the actual book that you can buy and hold in your hands and read on the tube.
Yes,
it's not like anyone is doing that right now.
And buy all of the other works of Alison Bechdel as well.
Yeah, of course. So we're obviously really excited about that, and stay tuned for what we might have coming up. I'll say no more.
Say no more. And also, like, no, not gonna add anything.
Okay.
So that's all the recommendations we've got for you for the month of June when it comes to theatre. We ourselves will be spending most of the month of June in intense fundraising mode because we, again, as we did last year, we're going up to Edinburgh Fringe. We're taking our stickers to show you which shows pass the Bechdel test. We'll be, of course, taking the podcast up there. And we are planning to stay for the whole month this time. We did 2 weeks last year of sleeping on people's floors, and it was slightly uncomfortable, but we were incredibly grateful to everyone who helped us. And we've decided this year we're going to do it properly. We're going to get ourselves a room and a cozy bed for the two of us to share. And we will be fundraising for that. So this is a little note to tell you to watch this space, because we're going to be organising. We can't say anything yet. It's all to be announced. But we will be holding a very special fundraising event for you to come and party with us. Maybe a little raffle type thing to get us some
Prizes
to be won.
Yeah, that's all we can say, really. The rest is to be announced.
But, you know, keep an eye on the old Twitter feed and everything.
But I like to think of it more as fundraising as opposed to fundraising.
Fundraising, like a fun run. But a show instead of a run.
Trying to make it more fun.
It will be fun.
No, it will be. It genuinely is going to be amazing.
All of our events are awesomely fun, so it will be fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we look forward to seeing you there, but until then, enjoy yourselves. Have a lovely month. And
Get some sun before you see Fun Home.
Oh my God. See you there, hopefully. Tell us if you go. Please tell us if you go.
Book now, because it's going to sell out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like really sold out. So genuinely really book now, because so much of it is gone. I think only like the end is kind of free. But yeah. Bye.
Bye.